and work on our analysis, it's always going to be nice and helpful. So, here we are in the bottom right-hand side. Love the clan tag, by the way. Awesome clan that you're in there.
That's glamorous.
My man. Reset that profile, except for global camera. Follow current.
Can I just quickly ask, is this being streamed or?
Yes, it is. Yeah, is that
All
cool?
right. Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. Okay, so why is that not working? Interesting. It's got to be something weird going on. Hotkeys. It's on a standard profile, and yet it won't lock on your camera. That's super odd. Oh well, doesn't matter, I guess. It's just frustrating because I wanted to just lock this on your camera.
What do you mean?
Yeah, so
I'm locked on the camera right now.
That's super weird. Oh, okay. My shift key. Okay, I have a rare issue with my keyboard where my shift key thinks it's being held down.
Yeah, sucks.
So we're just gonna control delete really quickly.
I'm still suffering from the drag scroll issue myself. That one still sucks.
When
you move the mouse and press the drag scroll button simultaneously, it jumps the cursor, just jumps the camera to your mouse.
Ah.
Super annoying, but I know. I've dealt with it for now, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think this is actually like a Windows 10 issue, my one as well, because I'm pretty sure it didn't happen before. But anyways, there's always some weird new issue every time we're on a computer. So awesome. So okay, we've got a game here. Let me turn the sound back.
Yeah, I saw he didn't wall off with his gate, so I just thought. Normally I open Stalker Sentry, but I just thought, well, if you don't wall off, I'll just go double adept.
I'm not even gonna watch what you're doing, and I want you to try to do the same right now. I didn't even kind of give a shit about that. Let's just kind of put down some baselines first, and this is good practice for making sure we're staying focused on the right things. So first thing we're gonna try and think about is composition. So previously, what you wrote is you said, okay, look, I've been doing Zest, Sentry first, expand. So is that what you're still doing at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So with that, obviously that's mostly just kind of an opening. This build actually is written up to a reasonably high point. So you're going Stargate every game, yeah?
Yeah.
And you always go Phoenix first?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So we're always sticking to that. And you're always doing your hallucination in a normal game. Obviously in this one you went the Adepts, so you skip on that, which is fine. It's totally fine. And then at 4 minutes, we get a Robo normally, according to the build. Obviously, we're not going to have the same timings as Zest. 4 minute 20, 2 extra gases, and a Forge. Okay, so it's just a Robo and a Forge transition. Obviously, you get out Immortals and so on. If they commit a lot to Blink Stalkers, what is our response to that?
Well, usually I don't really know what to do with the Robo, especially when they're going Phoenix as well, but I guess I'll go Immortals, maybe some more Phoenix as well. So just keep popping out the Phoenix.
So these are the different lines we want to really think about. Okay, so we're sticking to Zest's build. Basically, just to summarize it here so I don't forget if we do another session. Sentry, Stalker, Expand, Stargate before Nexus, and always Phoenix. Now, okay. So if we're versing ground, so say we're versing Blink, that's something where you said build Immortals, right? Okay, that's something we'd normally be doing anyway. This is kind of like our default, right? Let's assume it's default, because if you play against Stargate play, it needs to be totally different, all right? So this is like verse ground. We kind of want to think of that as just the normal, and we want to think about verse Stargate as being drastically different, right? So Immortals, and we might want shield batteries on the natural, right? So
right, makes sense.
Because if they do a big blink all in, Phoenix can be kind of bad versus that. If you make in a few Zealots are obviously an amazing unit against Blink Stalkers when they're combined with Immortals, because they have to blink on top of the Immortals, and even slow, shitty, unupgraded Zealots are suddenly a very cheap, high damage, amazing unit. So, Immortals, so versus Blink timings, we want to get shield batteries and some Zealots plus Chrono Immortals. And against that, and against ground play in general, what would our default Phoenix count be? Let's let's imagine they're just doing any non-Stargate style. Do you have a count of Phoenix that you stop at, or you're not sure?
4 or 5.
4 to 5 Phoenix. Okay, I think that's a good thing to have, and to be very like set on that, right? So we're not just overcommitting to Phoenixes, because 4 or 5 is going to give you so much scouting, the ability to pick up a lot of probes. But if they're very good with their defense, it's already kind of hard to get kills, right? With those Phoenix, other than the occasional probe here or there. And we don't want to commit to so many Phoenix that are going to kind of suck in frontal fights. Okay, cool. So, for shield battery, some zealots, yada yada, how do we identify a blink timing? What would be some tells of something scary like that coming? Like, let's imagine there was no Stargate in this game at this point. Like, what sort of things would we be looking at?
I guess upgrading Twilight would be by far the biggest tell.
That's going to tell you he's getting blink, but it doesn't really... That's like the most standard response, right? And this is a very normal tech structure. So let's talk about things that specifically talk about their investment into army versus economy.
More gates, I guess. No third base.
Yep, spot on. So extra gates, no third base. What about the gas count?
I mean, Stalkers are pretty... 50 gas each. I don't know how much gas you should get. I actually have no idea.
If they're making sentries and immortals, then absolutely they could use all 4 gases and do a 2-base timing. Right. But if they're going for a very fast, pure blink stalker attack, it could very well be with just 2 gases. There's old school all-ins versus Zerg, versus Terran, and even versus Protoss, where yeah, you get an expansion, but you only get, you know, half saturation on it or something, or not quite full saturation, and you go with just 2 gases. Or sometimes if you fully saturate, you only really need 3 gases if you're going pure blink stalker, and even that sometimes is overkill if you've been mining the first 2 gases early enough. So lack of gases on the natural. Now that's useful because just as a tell in general, that's always something that tells us something fishy is happening in PvP. Charge lot all-ins, adept all-ins, which are both dangerous versus Phoenix play. Obviously not because they kill the Phoenixes, but because they're going to potentially kill everything else before your Phoenixes deal with it.
Picking up charge lots seems like a bad time.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, it's bloody efficient if you've got enough time, but if they're already in your mineral line, it's a little bit different, right?
Optimal.
Yeah. So this is cool, right? Because I'm just kind of quickly laying down these different lines here so we can very early start asking our questions. What do we do in these situations? Now, this is something we're kind of looking at our document, right? Have you got 2 monitors, by the way?
Yeah.
Awesome. So looking at the way I'm writing down these kind of lists, you'll notice I'm very organized in how I do this. I started out with some very vague shit like, all right, what are our, let's get you to write out some goals or some current style and issues in PvP. We start with some general like, man, what's going on? I don't know. When do I take a third? Or, how do I defend 2 base all-ins? And then we very much say, okay, well, what is our baseline? It's super important to understand what our game plan is, right? In as much detail as possible before we start thinking about how do I react to something. This is something I used to talk about a ton, and I don't as much anymore, I guess because I rambled about it so much that a lot of my viewer base just don't ask it that much anymore. But a lot of people would always say, how do I scout this? Or how do I react to this? And 90% of the time, right up until we got to about where you are, Diamond 1, Masters 3, the answer would always be, well, okay, well, we need to know what your game plan is first in this situation. So are you doing this or this? And they'd be like, I don't know. And it would always be like, well, how can we memorize a reaction until we know exactly what you're doing? So that's kind of what we're doing here is I'm fleshing out, obviously, you already know a lot of these things, but kind of reminding yourself of all these details is really important. And what you'll find is there are things that aren't well defined. There's going to be things you're like, oh, sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that. And you realize like you're probably somewhat consistent with some responses or some parts of your build, but until you just instantly know what to do in each situation, there's probably going to be some weird mistakes or changes that happen here and there, right? So this is kind of giving us exact knowledge of what your game plan is so that we can refine our reactions and understand them down to perfect detail. Do we follow?
Right. Yeah.
Awesome. And writing out these lists is fantastic for that. So taking this down to a micro level, you've just died to a 2 base charge let all in. Okay, first thing you're gonna do is be like, all right, how do I scout this? And you'll write out a list. You'll be like, okay, what time does it hit? How many units does it hit with? Okay, then you'll be like, all right, and you'll be watching a replay from your opponent's point of view, and you'll be like, okay, what are the tells? All right, there's no gases on the natural. He even pulled off the gas in his main. You know, he's got 10 gateways really early. Okay, how could I scout that with this? All right, if I scout it, what is the exact reaction? Because a lot of people get very lazy in StarCraft, and they do this like, oh, well, I just need to build units. And they leave it at that, and they go back to ladder and queue up. And what I really like to try and impart on everyone is like, write out the exact, where do you want to stop your probe count exactly versus this? Because what you'll find is you get in game, you go, yeah, I just need to build units. I remember from the last time I lost to this, that's what I decided. And you'll get in game, you'll be like, should I take the gases on my natural? Or do I get 50 probes? Or do I stop at like 35 and just have like only a slight worker lead? And often you'll misjudge in the heat of battle, right? You'll be like getting an upgrade and a 3rd base, and gases on your natural, and you'd be like, well, I can still defend, like, you know, taking a 3rd, but I'm not building any probes for it. And it's like, well, your opponent's actually on 29 probes right now, and you've gone to 50 and upgrades and a 3rd nexus. Like, you've actually gone for like such a huge lead. So it's really nice to always like really write down your most exact response possible. Oh, that money storm. Wow, really sick timing by him. Really cool timing attack. But yeah, it's nice to be really exact with our reactions and stuff. So with this in mind, now we've got your baseline down. We've got your 2 core paths. Actually, we haven't written out your first Stargate one. So this is a great game for that. And we're coming to the end of this game. Well, actually, it's not the end, but it's about to get very messy. And let's go back. Like I said, this was all just eye candy for us. But let's go back and let's talk a little bit now about versus Stargate. So what's your response versus Stargate? Let's imagine you know it from the very beginning. Talk
so Stargate, right. Make lots of Phoenixes, basically by getting a 2nd Stargate relatively early.
Okay, so when do we get that 2nd Stargate?
Usually before my 3rd even. I don't know the exact timing. As fast as possible, most of the time.
Probably like we just kind of judge it to like do it obviously without cutting into Phoenix production too much, right? Like maybe it slows down. 2nd Stargate, when we have the gas. Now, a lot of times I'm like, I want that to be more definite. And if you play the scenario a lot, maybe you can make it a bit more definite, just to be more precise, right? But for now, I'm okay with you doing it by fail, okay? Because this is something where if you're chrono boosting Phoenix, you know, you don't have too much else going on at this stage. It should be okay. As long as you're not getting crazy different Stargate timings or forgetting it, we can be a little bit relaxed on that. So this is the moment where we first scouted he was going Phoenix this game, right? I believe?
Yes.
Well,
yeah, I see a Stargate.
His Stargate was actually built way before yours. He just forgot to use it. Good job, Adepts. Good job. Distracting our opponents. Always very nice. So, do you always go the Nexus after these 2 Stalkers, by the way? Like your 2nd set of Stalkers?
I usually take them before the 2nd set. The Nexus.
So was this because you went Adepts? You felt like you needed some more units out early? Or?
Yeah. Because of maybe he went like proxy Stargate or something like that. I really wanted the early Stalkers.
Okay. Cool. So it's a bit of an adjustment, but normally we'd get that Nexus a bit earlier, which is nice because it keeps us in a solid economic position. Okay, so we know it's Stargate. We're chrono boosting Phoenix here. Talk us through, what are the other details? You said we're going to focus on Phoenix production and we're going to get a 2nd Stargate. So when do we get the gases on our natural? What's the timing for that?
I do not have that very specifically.
Let's write it down then. Let's choose one now. Remember, there's no such thing as being wrong in StarCraft, and I don't play Phoenix openings, so even if I wanted to tell you the exact timing, which from a pro build, I couldn't even tell you. So make one up. Come up a marker.
I don't know, as soon as the Nexus finishes.
Okay,
just immediately take them.
When the Nexus finishes, immediately take both gases. Okay, so let's think about that one. So in this particular game, the Nexus finished a little bit later than normal. How many probes have you got on that? 7 probes immediately. So that's a very, very quick double gas. So let's think about that. If you're doing that, that's going to lead to like just as fast non-stop Phoenix production as possible. You're racing for these Phoenix upgrades. What do you miss out on by going for your gases so quickly? How does that change your economy? Or what does that change in the follow-up?
Well, I'm not going to be able to get any sort of ground army if
Yep.
I don't have the minerals for gates. So I guess that ties in nicely to dying to 2 bases, 2 base all-ins. And I don't know, upgrades forges. If I'm going for ground, I'm not going for ground, so I probably won't even get any forges.
Yeah, it doesn't really affect that. It is going to slow down your 3rd base a lot.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah, so that's one of the big things there. But I like where we follow this, right? It's good to think through the economic implications, because the downside is you can't afford a ground army and your 3rd gets delayed. 3rd is delayed a lot, right? What's the upside though? The upside is your Phoenix count grows a lot faster initially, and you're looking for that edge in the early stages of the Phoenix War. So that naturally leads us to say, okay, well, our Phoenix count builds nice and fast. So there's going to be a strong point relatively early, right? Our goal with this sort of economic build-up is not to just take a 3rd and sit there all game, especially if our opponent does it the different way, and he like probes up his 3rd mostly, then takes gases, and he's like always down 1 or 2 Phoenixes, or maybe even more than that. That's not the sort of game where we just take our 3rd, add Fleet Beacon, add +2 flyer attacks, and just chill all game, right?
Right.
We want to find a moment to gain advantage using that advantage. So our Phoenix count builds faster, we need to use that advantage. Now, if your opponent, you scout, and he has pretty much the exact same Phoenix count, and you can tell this mostly from, oh, those gases have been mining on the natural like the same time as mine. Easy way to check that, click on his gas. How much gas is mined? Click on your gas at your natural. This game's a good example. You can compare. Oh, you guys have been mining gas on your natural, almost identical timings, like really similar amounts of remaining gas. So you could say, oh, in this game, maybe I can just play the slower game and go for the 3rd. But other than that, I think this is like a good set of definitions here. Let's talk about a variation really quickly with Phoenix. So variation is waiting until we have 14 plus probes on natural, then natural gases. What does that give us? A faster 3rd base, instant 3rd base gas, because there's still urgency in the Phoenix count, of course. We can't just be like, lol, let's get a 4th and then take the gases. Like, you know, it's like there's points of madness. Already doing that is kind of greedy. But we saw Zest do this on Catalyst against Deer in GSL. And he went for a faster 3rd Stargate to make up for it. So he went faster 3rd Stargate. So he was like, all right, I'm going to build my economy a little bit more. Phoenix is often a bit of a standoff situation. I'm going to just kind of play a little bit, and he already had an advantage in that game as well, so that's part of it. But it's just interesting to think about the variations. I'm not saying we should do this. We've just got it written down as a variation so we can kind of comprehend what we're going up against as well if someone else does that sort of thing. Faster 3rd Stargate, later but bigger Phoenix explosion. Okay, awesome.
I usually don't even get a 3rd Stargate.
Yeah, you just kind of focus on the faster Fleet Beacon, right?
Yes, get Phoenix range.
That's what's really interesting as well, is like he goes for like a much later Fleet Beacon in that game. He says, I'm just gonna have the raw count. And the thing is, you can beat Phoenix range. Obviously, you've got to kind of catch your opponent not looking, or you corner them. You come in from a surprising angle. That also can work very well, right? And if you're just ahead enough in Phoenixes and do some good back and forth micro, unless they've got very, very, very good micro with that Phoenix range, they're not going to be able to both stay in range of hunting you down and at the same time stay out of range of you just turning around and getting on top of them. Because we know the moment you're on top of them, Phoenix range counts for nothing, right? Like they maybe get 1 or 2 Phoenix kills early, but other than that, it's like, well, you're both in the exact same situation. Your Phoenix is just flying on top of each other. So let's go back in this game. I've noticed a few pretty big mistakes in terms of your Phoenix play. What would you identify as some big issues that went on? Any criticism?
Not seeing that it's Stargate early. I only realized it's Stargate when I actually see the Phoenixes with my own Phoenixes. So the 2nd Stargate should have been way earlier.
Okay, so you maybe saw the Stargate, but you weren't sure it was Stargate, or you just forgot about it?
Yeah, I saw it, but I didn't see it, right?
Okay, you didn't check, yeah. All right. I mean, thankfully, oh, it's so funny that your Phoenix pulled away just as that Oracle came in. That's always a pain. But I don't think the Oracle ended up doing any damage, if I remember. Yeah, and so we've wasted gas on the robo and stuff, right? That's always a pain.
Yeah. So if I would have seen, oh, he's going for a Stargate, I wouldn't even have built the robo.
You know what's interesting though, right? You at this point, I think you still think it's ground play. I don't think you've registered. What's weird about that to me is your gases on your natural are very, very early.
Yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing.
So let's talk about that gas timing versus ground. Let's define that. So, are you normally playing a Mortal Charge Lot Archon as your ground-based style follow-up to your Fortify Phoenix, or do you play Big Disruptor? Okay, you play just the normal. So choose a timing. When do you think you should take those gases if you're just going into, you know, gateways and immortals and charge lots and archons?
I mean, I'm going to need to gas pretty late. The only gas intensive is going to be archons and immortals, and archons will still take a while, I think. So maybe like 6 minutes, a little bit earlier.
What about how many probes on the natural? Because the game can be pretty flexible, so I think this is a little bit of a firmer way to understand it.
I don't know, full mineral saturation?
Okay. Alright, so let's say at natural saturation, take natural gas. Now, that's something where maybe you end up being like, oh, actually I'll do it on 14 probes. It feels a bit better. Whatevs. But just make sure you're very dedicated to setting that and doing it at the exact same time. Because that's going to have huge implications, especially to defending all-in attacks and so on. And as you mentioned, your gateway, you know, your gateway count and everything. If you take these gases too fast, you can often end up being like, cool, I'm getting +2. I've got my Archon tech down. I've got my 3rd Immortal. I'm making me 1st Archon. I managed to finally squeeze in a 3rd base. My 3rd's finished. I'm still probing. I'm still on 2 gateways this whole time because I never had the minerals to get up the 7 or 8 gateways. And oh, he's taken a 3rd as well, but he actually hasn't probed it much. And now he's hitting a timing and I'm dead because he has 10 extra charge lots warping in. He's already, you know, and otherwise he's got the same amount of tech units. And it's just like, oh, that was dumb. So I think, yeah, definitely just being really defined with that is huge. And this is something you should always pay attention to. So the other big thing is, how do we use our Phoenixes? Once we realize it is a Phoenix versus Phoenix situation, we see here, obviously, a few mistakes. We come in with the Phoenix, we see it's Phoenix, and we do end up losing one. So obviously, losing a Phoenix early is terrible. We could have actually punished that and easily killed one of his Phoenix if we reacted a little bit quicker there, right? Since it was 5 versus 3, and even a few Stalkers and Sentry, their damage up was pretty pitiful compared to Phoenix versus Phoenix. But from there, you're like, ah, it's Phoenix versus Phoenix, and I've given up one of my Phoenix. Now, you hang around at this point, and you do stay checking out what's going on. Now, check this out. What is he doing? We can see everything in the replay. What is he doing? Is he massing Phoenix right now?
He's not going for a 2nd Stargate, and I mean, he's building them, but there's no chrono. So I guess he's not massing them.
He's got a forge, right?
Right, yeah.
He's got a robo.
And he's building a robo.
And most importantly, what did he show you at his natural? Can you see where I'm signaling? Go to everyone's camera.
2 sentries?
Yeah, 2 sentries, 3 stalkers, right? He did not have those at the start of the game, those sentries. Definitely not both of them anyway. He's building ground units. And they're gas-heavy ground units. And if we see the robo and the forge as well, not to mention the fact that we already saw he was down a Phoenix, right? Or 2 Phoenixes. So losing a Phoenix, we shouldn't necessarily be shitting the bed because we're on his side of the map, which usually means we've got another Phoenix on the way, right? So it looks like we're ahead in the Phoenix count, and then we see ground units. And what we see from your opponent here is a player who also did not realize he was going up against Phoenix. And the thing is, you start going for a 3rd, and you are kind of on this ground transition. Now, you come in, you see the forge, you see the robo. This recall I hate, by the way. We should have just run away there. If he jumped on that, he could have killed 2 Phoenixes there.
Yeah, I realized that too right after I recalled. Was like, oh, this might have been a terrible decision.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of funny recalls lately. I love that everyone's using it so much now, but we see some like hilarious recalls from players. Yeah, that was not in the worst book of them. I just keep seeing people like recalling a probe that's like not even gonna get killed. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Just walk it home across the map. Use the chrono boost to build another one. But yeah, it's something which is interesting because he's just going straight into ground style, and you already had your Phoenix Edge, right? And the thing is, you've already invested in transitioning into your own ground style. You've built Immortals and stuff. You know, you haven't put as much into it as he has, but definitely it's you're going for a second Stargate now, even though he's investing in ground. Now, in hindsight, if I were you, I would be beelining your observer across the map. And I would be like, get the fuck in that main base right now. And do you know why? It's because I would realize that we're both in the very awkward position of having wanted to play Phoenixes and not realizing the other guy was doing it. And it's kind of too late for us to go into the Phoenix superiority. Almost. But then we also don't want to like lose the Phoenix count. We don't want to be like, oh, I've got 7 and he's like hit 9 Phoenix now and he just wrecks my Phoenixes and can harass me all game. But at the same time, you don't want to like mass 2 Stargate Phoenix here and end up facing an Immortal Charged Archon army that's already actualized, which is what we're seeing, right? Because you haven't been hurting his probes. So neither of you has actually been using your Phoenix the way they need to be used against a ground style, which is picking up probes, picking off units, forcing more defense, slowing down their economy, seeing exactly what their tech is and their commitment, right? So I would be desperately trying to scout, is he building more Phoenix? Is he committing to more ground units? Oh, the Forge is spinning? There's Immortals popping out? Okay, he's still committing to ground up. He's building some Phoenix, but not that many. Okay, cool. You know, this is a really weird scenario. What do I do from here? And I would probably say, oh, well, I mean, I should have just kept committing to ground, right? We had the info to know he was going ground. We had the info to know you had the Phoenix advantage as well. Maybe you just should have cut Phoenix production or just kept building them out of 1 Stargate and just gone for like Blink, or Charge, Immortals, Archons, and all of that sort of stuff, because you've already got the 3rd up, you've got a fat economy. Even if he gets the Phoenix advantage, it's not going to be the end of the world. As long as you've got Archons in your army, you know, they're not really going to be useful in frontal fights. Once Archons are out, Phoenix become pretty weak because they stack up a lot and they just kind of fall out of the sky a little bit. They can't pick up the big important Archons. They can disable Immortals and Disruptors, but that's about it. So I feel like this is an interesting game because we kind of come to this very strange situation where you go for this very, very delayed, oh, I'm going to go for the Phoenix superiority. I'm going to go for the range, but I'm still building Immortals. And I'm going Mass Zealots because I have gateways, but I'm not adding Charge because I think I'm going for Stargate. So this is like a position where no matter what the correct decision is, we're being indecisive. And I think whenever you identify a situation where you're indecisive, you want to go back and you want to say, hey, next time I'm here, what should I do? What should be my game plan? And let's go back just a few minutes. And I'd like you to tell me, what do you think you should have done from this point when your Phoenix came in the main and recalled? So I think that was just here. Yeah. It's about 6:30. So in hindsight, we've paid attention. We've seen sentries, the Forge, the Robo. We've processed that information. What do you do? What do you do here? Do you keep building Phoenix? Do you mass gateways? Do you continue your ground transition? Talk me through it.
So based on what you just told me, I would probably stay on ground because it's way too late to actually go into the Phoenix War. Add Immortals, get Archons ASAP, and yeah, still try to take the 3rd base. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Get upgrades.
So continue with normal ground transition. Did you say you wanted to keep building Phoenix or just cut completely? I'm not sure there's a correct one, by the way. It's honestly just whatever you think.
No, when I go ground, I don't think I benefit a lot from more than 5 Phoenix.
Okay, and now let's think about that. He does keep building Phoenix here, so he will get the advantage. Okay. Because this is not necessarily a normal scenario. Ideally, we would have known what was going on minutes earlier and gone straight into the heavier Phoenix count, right? And we would have started doing the damage early enough that we would never have needed to go ground until much later. So cut Phoenix production, but what does that involve? That means he has air superiority. So how do you need to use your Phoenix differently, or how do you need to react? What are you going to adjust to be safe against the fact that he has air control?
The Archons will, at least in a straight up fight, make sure the Phoenix do nothing. Build cannons, I guess, to defend it. Though I'm not sure how effective that actually will be against Phoenix, because they can usually just fly right over them, right?
Yeah, I feel like a cannon in the main and the third's a good idea, though. Definitely. Maybe not the natural, just because obviously that's the most protected base, but definitely the main and the third. Just to stop them just hovering there, right? It forces APM, you will pick off a Phoenix or two. So I think the cannon in each mineral line is not a bad idea. What about, how do you use your own Phoenixes? You can't just fly them around the map. If they run into the Phoenixes, they die, right? So what do you just keep your Phoenixes with your army and just kind of use them as extra damage once his Phoenixes start lifting? Do you hide them somewhere? And then when you see his Phoenixes harassing you, you go and harass him. What do you think you want to do with your Phoenixes?
Maybe use them defensively and build a couple of shield batteries. I don't know how much that influences the Phoenix versus Phoenix battle, but if I can just stay at home and make sure they don't pick up any probes. That'd be great.
So I personally would not want to invest too much in the batteries, but maybe that does help a little bit. It's as the Phoenix, as they get to like 8 Phoenix, I think they pretty much one-shot one of yours, so a battery doesn't really get a chance to do much. But
okay.
I like the idea of like, okay, well you can use them use defensively, stacked up with cannons, etc., to kind of scare them off, right? So
yeah,
it's one of these things where it's hard for them to just look at that and be like, oh, I can just jump on that. And if they're really good, they might do that. But we can say, you know what, I'm going to keep those Phoenixes around. And if he comes in on a cannon and starts lifting, my Phoenixes run in. He's got to cancel the lifts and quickly run away, right? He's not going to take that fight because he's already taking damage from the cannon. His Phoenix is shooting probes. It's a bit awkward. So they're like, oh, okay, this is a way of stopping him flying his 8 Phoenix into a mineral line, ignoring the cannon, and picking up 16 probes. Losing 1 or 2 Phoenix for it, and then walking away and going, haha. Okay, cool. So I think this is good though, but it's like, we're gonna be very careful with those Phoenixes. So we keep them behind and only bring in once he starts lifting, right? Unless you're pretty much equal in the Phoenix count, as you get further behind, you gotta be super, super conservative with the use of those Phoenixes, or they're just gonna die instantly, right? But that's cool. Okay, we came up with a plan there. We're trying to think through all these different little scenarios, right? So in this game, really straightforward. We would have just been going, okay, I've got a third, I've got, charge, I've got Immortals, Archons, upgrades on the way, I'm up to 10 gateways, yada, yada, yada. Instead, what did we look? We look at this replay, we just say, oh, this is just fucking weird, right? Now we're trying to go carriers, but we've got like zealots, but they still don't have upgrades. We're not massing cannons. And we've got 75 probes. Oh my lord. So what's your normal probe count on 3 bases? Where do you normally cut probes?
I definitely just keep building them and take my 4th too late. Or, yeah. I usually just go straight up to 75 probes.
Really? 75 in PvP?
73
okay.
Is my usually, yeah. I usually go for something like that in every matchup.
Okay, so you love going to 75 probes, and that's okay. You can do that as your standard play, but as a macro player, you need to be smart about how we react to things, right? We need to be flexible. So in this game, we saw his third was about 12 minutes later than ours, and we knew he was basically doing a 2-base all-in. We've known this for minutes on end in this game. So
yeah, I guess I didn't know, but yeah, looking back, it makes sense.
This is something where, at this point, you knew. You saw the third base had nothing on it. Your third base is fully saturated.
It just didn't register.
It didn't register,
for some reason.
Exactly. This happens even when you know it should register, but it's something where you should always be like, whoa, why was I not looking at that? This is like the most... Testing.
You cut out there for a second.
No worries.
I think you're back now.
Okay, cool. Discord just being Discord. This is like the most fundamental important thing in StarCraft is the idea of what is a safe lead, right? What is a safe lead? Now in this game it's actually a fancy complication because you're both going Phoenixes, but you're going for more Phoenixes, which means you're committing to even more units. But on the most basic level, what do you look at? It's worker comparison, right? And this is one of the most fundamental things. If you're doing 75 probes in every matchup, maybe even 80 sometimes, you got to be thinking about this in all your matchups. And this is your #1 scouting. So what is a safe lead in this scenario? Okay, let's just do it scenario by scenario. Opponent is 45 probes, empty third base. Let's imagine we've been on par all game long. Where do we stop probe production to be safe?
In a mirror matchup, you don't need that much more probes, right? So, I don't know, say we're both on 44, I'll go up to a little over 50.
So you're going to say 55 probes. Okay, that's a really healthy lead. 10 probes? Whew, very nice. That's awesome. Now, there are ways that scenario can change, right? If he doesn't, a lot of people will just be like, 2 bases is 45 probes. Well, if he doesn't have gases on his natural, he might only be on 32 or 36 probes or 38 probes or something like that, right? So, you know, in that scenario, it's like, oh, we should only be at 45. We shouldn't even take a third, right? There's like these adjustments. In this game, we fully saturated a third and we took gases there. And to compound on that, he's going a ground army when we're building little flyy birds that don't actually help against Archons and whatnot. So we should actually say, you know what, our Phoenix are going to keep killing his probes all game long because we have this advantage. And this is something which we should have been using by this point, by the way, right? We should have been going around the back of his natural or his main, ignoring the cannon, picking up a ton of probes and saying, come fight me, you know, because I've got Phoenix range, at least, maybe not at this point, but I guess you start doing that, I think, around the time he pushes you. Obviously, it's just the timings are late and awkward. But this is something where we could say to ourselves, you know what, I've got the better tech, right? So that's just like the worker equation is what we talked about, right? You have to factor in, you also have to factor in tech, composition, and upgrades, okay? So if you're going, you look at your opponent, you're like, oh yeah, he's doing this, right? Let's imagine it's a more standard game. You're both on ground play, right? Let's theory, right? We're using our brain. We're not looking at this game. So I'm looking through his base right now.
My brain as a pulse.
Yep, I know, right? This is actually like the fucking craziest thing. Like, I just want to click things and make them die in the video game, but we're gonna try and use our brain. So, real quick shout out. Thank you so much, Yenfu for the host, Nanobite for the 5-month resub. Thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate the support. So you look through his base, right? Our Phoenix have been flying through. What do we see? Oh yeah, he's got the gases on his natural. He's going Archons and Mortals Charge. Let's imagine he doesn't have the Phoenix, right? Okay. There's no Forge. Okay, so there's no Forge. There's
the Forge is in his main, though.
Let's imagine there's no Forge.
Oh, okay.
So imagine there's no Forge. You've seen like 8, 9, maybe even 10 gateways. He's got the gases on his natural. He does have the Templar Archives, but there's no Forge. You've got a Forge. You're going +1 up. You've got +1. You start heading towards +2. He's got a third base, but there's no probes on it, and you don't see any probes going to it. If you've already got a third, but let's say you don't have any probes on it yet, and your instinct is to say, well, I want to build about 7, 8, maybe even 10 probes for my third. Get up to that 55 probe count, right? So I've got the 10 worker lead. But then you think about it and you say, wait a second, I'm making my +2 upgrade. That's a big investment. I've already made +1. Now I'm making +2. These upgrades take a long time to really be worth it in a game, right? They usually take like a fight or that's a really big or even multiple fights. So you could say to yourself, wait a second, I'm going for +2. He isn't. I've already invested in 5 Phoenix. And even though they've slowed him down by killing some workers, they're not going to help that much in the fight. Ooh. And if I were in your shoes in that scenario, I would say to myself, I'm not going to actually probe my third at all. Because my Phoenix are going to keep getting kills. That's a lead. That's a tech advantage, right? The Phoenix. He doesn't really have an efficient answer to it. He tries to probe up his third at any point. He's going to lose probes, man. I'm going to keep sneaking to his main and natural. I'm going to keep killing probes. Okay, that's a tech advantage. The upgrades, that's an upgrade advantage as well. So in that scenario, I or you, in this scenario, we're talking about you would be very happy to just not probe your third and say, I'm super ahead. And worst case scenario, we look at his army, we say, that's fucking scary. I can't fight that. We give up our third Nexus. We don't even care, right? Because, well, he's not going to be able to probe his yet. We can, like, retake it, right? Because I've still got these advantages going for me. So we want to kind of add all those things up in our head and always be thinking about that in every game. And especially in a mirror matchup, more than any other, you want to just do it on the basic worker lead, right? But we want to, as you get better and better and as you lose games, you go, why the fuck did I lose this game? I only went ahead by 5 workers. Look at those other investments. Be like, oh, he cut upgrades. oh, fuck me, he cut this, he cut that, and try to analyze that. And then you can do cool things to make up for this as well. Sometimes you overstep, but even just realizing you've stepped into the phase of not safe lead, but oh, I'm being a bit fucking greedy, is good because you're more focused on like, if I just defend this attack, I will be in an amazing position. And you do cool things like they're coming with their timing and your Phoenix swoop in and cut off the Warp Prism and you catch it mid-map because it's a bit too in front or behind their army. You kill the Prism and you go, get fucked, haha.
Yeah, that's
and it
just
good. Totally chomps off their attack and you're like, all right, sweet, we're in a good spot. But this is such an important thing. I want you to apply to all of your matchups. So if we're gonna write down a little piece of homework for that, what we get out of today, it's gonna be homework, every game for a week, all matchups, every game for the next week, watch your replays that you lost, and compare and look to see if you had a safe lead. So just kind of analyze it in that regard. Shortcuts for that. Always look at the worker graph at the end of a game. That's like your kind of snapshot if you can't be bothered opening up the whole replay. And then you can put that in perspective of like, wait, I was only up like 3 workers. How'd I die? And then you can start thinking, well, maybe I must have gone for a bunch more tech. And you quickly like 8 times the replay and be like, shit, I went for so much more tech and upgrades and stuff, which he can't.
Right.
And you can apply this against Zerg especially. This is really big because we know how Zerg plays.
Something not being a safe lead is when I die, basically.
That's when we get a very clear indicator that it wasn't a safe lead. But you can look at a replay, or you can look at the graph, and you can say, I was 20 workers ahead of my opponent. That was not a safe lead. I'm just lucky that I got away with it in this game, right? Sometimes they won't punish you, and it'll pay off big, right? But that's where we realize we're gambling, often without even realizing it in the game. We're like, oh, fuck me, I went to 75 probes, and Storm, and 16 gateways, and 3 robos, and he was actually only on 65 drones massing Roach Hydra. I'm really lucky I didn't just die to this. You know, he fucked up his timing or something like that.
Yeah.
So always look at the worker graph at the end, and try to start putting the game in that perspective, because as someone who's such a super macro player, which is a really cool way to play Protoss, because Protoss has a lot of these great comeback spells and abilities, Immortals and Shield Battery, Sire Storm. Fancy Warp Prism Micro is the cool thing we see pro players use all the time recently, right? Where you're like, well, he's dead. That's 80 Roaches and Ravages, and like the 3 Immortals and the 2 Archons kill all 80 Roaches. Yeah, and you're like, okay, all right. When I get that good with that micro, I can do that as well, where obviously the pro player is kind of blindsided by it, but they make up for it with micro. And obviously at your level, you're not always going to pull that off, but there's other cool ways you can come back if you're just doing this kind of almost overly confident macro and you're just kind of always trying to push the game to the next stage. Protoss has a lot of good comeback units if they can survive long enough. Awesome. So I think that's some really good kind of information that we've broken down so far in terms of all that. In this game, we see, you know what? It's like, oh, this was like a pretty decent usage of Phoenixes, looking to use your advantage, looking to get the Anion Pulse crystals, but we just didn't have the correct information this game, and so we were all over the place. Our Adepts actually did get the information, right? But we're just not used to looking at our Adepts as closely. We were like so panicked, kind of focusing down probes, which you did a good job of. You weren't looking around the base. Whereas normally, you send a hallucination in, I guarantee you fucking look at what that hallucination sees, because that's its only job, right? And that's something you've trained yourself to look for. So if you find yourself saying, ooh, my opponent hasn't walled in, I'm gonna go double Adept in future, we can kind of remind ourselves, oh, let's actually micro that, let's do that. So anyway, at this stage of this game, obviously, what can we analyze anymore to finish off kind of this replay? Well, okay, this is cool. We snatched off a Warp Prism. But there's clearly, I think, no appreciation of the situation you're in at this stage. Where... No,
Yeah, I only thought, oh, there's Archons, I need to watch out with my Phoenix. And not, oh, maybe he might attack me at some point in the future.
Yeah, that's it, like Double Forge and Twilight. I'm like, if I were you, I would be building 32 cannons spread between your third and your natural right now. I would be like, fuck, man, like his third is still empty, and you've seen that again just then, by the way, as well. It's like, I would be like, I've gone so far beyond a safe lead into the realm of absolute he is fucked the longer this game goes. Like, getting carry is cool. That's a great way to spend that lead. But where's the 16 cannons on each base? Where's the 8 shield batteries? You know, where's obviously charge and 1-1? Yeah, that's a good idea because we've made so many zealots. But it's like, wait, why were we making these zealots in the first place? So this is one of these great confused games where you just get lost with what you're doing. And you look back and you've just got to go right back to the early points where you got confused. Remember, that's what we did. Like, it's like, wait a second, you saw he had Phoenix. What do we do next time we're here? Because you're never going to solve yourself making dumb decisions or reactions in game. That's part of StarCraft, is us reacting badly in the heat of battle. The important thing is being able to open up a replay and very quickly and decisively say to ourselves, wait a second, the fuck did I do wrong here? You know, why did I do that? Okay, what should I have done? Let's write down what should I have done. Let's understand why I should have done that. Cool, now I understand it. Next time is going to be 1,000 times better. So, good shit, man. Let's hop out of this replay. And I think this has been a really good theory session so far in helping iron out kind of that scenario. Do you want to open up another quickly go through a few more PvP replays, and we can look at more of a standard ground versus ground follow-up, hopefully. I know you don't have your replays labeled, so maybe let's just open one, load in. If we can 8 times it, see what we learn from it, kind of quickly zoom through a few more with our last few minutes in the coaching sesh.
I'd have to find one where you can go ground.
Oh, well, I mean ground follow-up, right? Because it's your standard follow-up to the Phoenixes is ground play, right? Or are you just playing versus Stargate so often that you're almost always ending up in a Phoenix war?
Often. Yeah,
that's cool.
Stargate all the time.
That's cool. We can keep looking at these games in a more standard scenario. If you're playing it that much, us spending all the coaching time talking about Phoenix versus Phoenix in a more normal scenario is not a bad thing either. So just grab any replay, watch with others. Let's just dive in. We can talk more about Phoenix versus Phoenix. And I'm no expert at Phoenix versus Phoenix by any means. I've always just been kind of averse to the super mirrored unit situations because I'm a bit of a cheeky fucker. Same with Muta versus Muta, same with Roach versus Roach. I'm more of a guy who's going to split off part of his army and counterattack and try to create a more chaotic unit tech switching sort of situation rather than I'm just going to use the composition better than my opponent. That's my predisposition as a player, but I've definitely watched enough Phoenix versus Phoenix to have a pretty good appreciation for it, so...
Yeah, the Phoenix versus Phoenix battles have actually gone reasonably lately, so... Yeah.
That's good. And I think as you refine the gas timing and stuff here, like, you know, we're really like focusing on that even more, which is kind of great. And I think already talking about that theory of like, well, you're going to be rushing your second Stargate in your non-stop Phoenix production. I mean, there's a few things we still need to write down in that regard, which is like, hey, when does our fleet beacon go down and stuff like that. And we can try and define that stuff better and better. Just grab any.
I'm trying to find a loss here, but...
Doesn't matter. Actually, win or loss doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll just watch this one then.
Yeah, I'm gonna point out the holes anyway. I'm gonna be like, you did this wrong. He could have killed you here.
I'm sure there are plenty of that.
All right. Make me the leader. There we go. Oh, 16-bit. Yeah, I bet you see a lot of Stargate on this map. I think this is a good map to 4-gate people on. People are going to be taking greedy nexuses with Phoenix play and stuff.
People like me.
Yep. Good map to metagame on. These big maps. Good map to either go super greedy or super all in. Everyone tends to be taking a bit of a gamble. So, off the top of your head, fleet beacon timing. When do you think you should do that?
Actually, I read the description of the build, so that's I should get it when I can queue up Phoenixes. So when I'm not slowing down Phoenix production.
All right, that's a cool way of doing it. So when we can queue up Phoenix.
You cut out there again.
I was just repeating what you were saying while writing it down. No
okay.
worries. When we can queue up Phoenix. Is a good timing. Okay, so that's very much by feel, and as always, if you find this inconsistent or you're often forgetting it, you can remind yourself. So you can do something like, oh, this happens at 7 minutes usually. Like, bam. Like, usually, most of my games, it's right around 7 minutes. Let's remember to look for that about 7 minutes, because sometimes I'm not paying attention, I'm microing my Phoenix, I'm taking my third, and I don't realize I got 3 Phoenix queued on each Stargate, and obviously that's really bad. So just always look. Whenever anything is inconsistent in your play, define it even more, right? And that's something I'm gonna like just harp on about, because it's like, it's this obsessive refining and defining everything you're doing in the game, which is just going to make you become a better and better player. And any problem you come into, you're going to get better at overcoming it. And that's StarCraft in a nutshell, right? Because the meta is going to change, the balance is going to change, just the way people want to play is going to change. There's always going to be new problems, but if we can become like systematic in how we solve those problems, the game becomes almost easy, right? It just becomes so much simpler to deal with everything.
Right.
Cool. So let's fast forward. Your opponent's going, oh wow, he's going like a very, very kind of delayed Stargate. He's almost doing an NA. This is almost like an NA Stargate time. I bet he builds an Oracle out of that. Let's see. Is this like the most conservative Phoenix play? Nah, yeah, it's a double Oracle for sure, which he doesn't even start straight away. Yeah, this isn't NA Oracle.
It's the main reason I go Phoenix first. If you snipe the Oracle, it's super good.
Absolutely. Yeah, Phoenix is definitely the more conservative approach. It's where you're looking for like, you know, to encounter the same situations over and over, right? Whereas the Oracle is like a bit more of a hit or miss unit. Because if you run into Phoenix, it's like, well, hopefully you spot they're going Phoenix, you hide the Oracle in a corner, you wait till their Phoenix are on your side of the map, then you come in. But every game's a little bit different, right? Sometimes the Oracle just gets shut down, sometimes it kills 8 probes. With Phoenix, there isn't as much variance, right? It's like much more stable of an opening. Oh, yeah, this is absolutely the NA Oracle timing. So if you see, the one thing that makes me rage on my stream every time I'm playing PvP is just all these random fucking protoss on NA who just come in with like a 6-minute random Oracle off a robo opening. I'm like, what? Why is that there? And I'm the one person who doesn't build shield batteries like blindly for safety. I'm finally starting to do it just to like block this sort of thing. But yeah, look at this Oracle. The fuck? Who comes in at 5 minutes 20 with a random Oracle? It's not even a double Oracle.
I was a little bit. It was a bit weird because I came in with the hallucinated Oracle, and normally the idea is they pull their Phoenixes to kill the Oracle because they think it's the real one. So they know it's Phoenixes, and if they don't, they go Oracle. Yeah. But the Oracle was just so late.
I mean, it's so funny, right? Because you have this tendency to get annoyed when people do play the way we don't want them to play. We're like, it doesn't make sense, it's dumb. But it's so important to think about why things work and how we can play around that, right? And I think you did a pretty good job there in that, like, yeah, you're like, okay, he probably canceled his Oracle, I'm gonna move out. He kills 4 probes, it's not the end of the world. One thing we can be very certain of, though, is when you scouted, you did see a robo, right? And we saw that he was going ground play. You saw the robo, you saw an Oracle building, so you knew you'd be ahead in the Phoenix production. But now we're building a second Stargate. So what's that all about?
Yeah, I basically went in my mind, there's a Stargate, we're going Phoenix.
See, that would be a terrible decision for him though, right? Because he's behind in the Phoenix. So if he does that, he's got to commit all out, immediate double Stargate, like he's got to cancel that robo. So there's like a very easy way for you to scout that. Let's go back and think about that. You scout early on with this Oracle. You've spotted what's going on. We've got Phoenix out. We've got 3 Phoenix. Why don't we just send one across the map, poke it in? All you need to do is go to everyone's camera, is come in, bam, poke in, and if that Phoenix Stargate isn't producing, then you know he's just committing to ground and not trying to catch up. And if it is producing, you're like, okay, cool, we can go double Stargate. And you immediately cancel your robo, right?
Alright, so that seems risky. To flying a single Phoenix, will it not get picked off every single time he goes Stargate?
If you're watching it, how could it?
Yeah, right.
There's like a 1 in 6 chance. Think about the 6 areas he could be sitting as Phoenix. Why would you sit your Phoenix in any of those scenarios? You're not. You're going to keep them in between your bases or at your natural or your main, right? They're not going to be on the edge of the base. And if you react fast enough, you live in Europe, you've got instant reactions, you've got very good connection to your server. You should be able to just be watching that Phoenix as soon as it gets within a screen or 2 of his base, fly it in, and then just turn it around. If you see his Phoenix, that's all you need to know anyway, right? So as long as you're paying attention as it comes in, that's a really easy safe scout. That's actually such a low percentage chance of it getting caught. And even if it gets caught and dies, that's better than the alternative, which is you doing the same thing you did last game, which is you're going 2 Stargate Phoenix while building Immortals, which is this kind of weird, mixed kind of awkward thing, right? We want to be like, there's like 2 separate branches. You have a beautifully refined opening. I like your opening a lot, okay? It's the trunk of your tree of Protoss versus Protoss. But we should have two very separate branches on opposite sides of the tree. One is I'm fighting ground, one is I'm fighting Phoenix, and we're in a Phoenix war. And those branches pretty much should never mix. They should never cross paths, right? And we need to really focus on you identifying that as early as possible in these games. And that's gonna smooth everything out for you. Because we're in the same situation as the last game. And I thought that was a one-off. But this game, I'm like, this is an almost identical scenario in terms of building Immortals and Phoenix at the same time, where I immediately am like, oh, this is something which probably happens a lot to you. Because it can't be coincidence that it's only happened twice, right? Like,
no, it's definitely a thing that happens. I built a robo, and yeah, don't know what to do with it. Guess I'll make Immortals.
I think this is really good because this just tells us, you know what? If it, you know, let's write down a few notes for this one. So, write it down the bottom. So we're gonna say, how do we think of this game? How do we conceptualize it in our mind? So we scout Oracle opening. So in that scenario, we're very confident because we're ahead in Phoenix, right? Now, I would send the first Phoenix across the map and actually scout, because I would figure your second Phoenix is going to be out and they're covering your mineral line by the time an Oracle could arrive. And most of the time they should cancel that Oracle or try and hide it and come in from a surprising angle. Do you agree? Do you think that's what we should do?
Send the first Phoenix across the map?
Yep, just to check the Stargate. To see
I don't know how much later that arrives than the hallucinated Oracle.
I mean to follow up afterwards, like so like first Phoenix goes to check if they're still building Oracle, basically. Let's say first or second. Basically, roughly a minute after that first one scout. So your first scout should hit at about 410, something like that. Right around here. So, and we've already got your first two Phoenix out. Okay, so we can say, oh, we see them going Oracle. It's very important to follow up scout. So let's just say, okay, we're confident because we're ahead in Phoenix. Follow up Phoenix goes to check if they're still building. Check if they're going Oracle. Yeah, just check the Stargate.
All right.
So Phoenix equals we mass Phoenix. No production. Or Oracle equals we go ground, right? Because if they're building Oracles, well, we've already got 4 or 5 Phoenix is our default we're going to no matter what. That's obviously going to defend non-stop Oracle production or whatever silliness they're going for. But the only thing we're looking for is, are they building Phoenix? That's all that matters. And if we do that, then we go for the second Stargate. But in this scenario, same as that last game, if we'd done that with the Phoenix right now, even if we checked it as late as this, we would just be immediately like, oh, Twilight, Forge, extra gateways, Templar Archives, and you just go into your normal army. Your 5 Phoenix would be harassing. You'd just be going in, picking up probes. Obviously, because his Oracle didn't show itself, you were like, God damn it, I need to fucking go kill your, kill some probes. So you flew across, you took a tiny bit of damage, and from here, our Phoenix should just be harassing, right? This is a standard Phoenix versus ground now. Engaging the Stalkers here, I think was a bit of a bad decision.
A little bit risky.
Yeah, I think it worked out okay, but like we should have a real sense of urgency behind getting in those mineral lines.
Oh, you cut out again.
Sorry. We should have a real sense of urgency behind getting in those mineral lines, right? In this sort of game especially, our opponent has gone Robo after start. He doesn't have Blink. It's a free pass to massacre probes. And the thing is, obviously, why would you want to save your lifts is, well, what if he all-ins you? That could be a little bit scary. But on this map, on this ramp, there's no way he's going to break you on 2 base, right?
What's he going to do? Yeah.
Exactly. I think part of why you're worried is because you're kind of still stuck in this mindset of, well, I'm massing Phoenix. Oh, wait, that's a ground army? So I've got to, I guess I need to use my Phoenix to defend. But then it's like, well, no, you should actually be building Immortals and stuff, and they're going to keep you so safe. Like, your Phoenix should always be running through and just picking up probes, and you're already ahead in economy. You go through, pick up 5 probes right now. This goes from you being ahead to you being game in the bag. Like, you just go through this base, and you're like, well, I don't even see extra gateways right now. His army, and the thing is, his army is going to chase you around between the mineral lines. Even just by going into the main, picking up probes, if no Stalkers respond to that, you're like, oh, let's build some shield batteries at home if I'm a bit worried, if I want to be really safe, right?
Let's panic.
And it's actually, it's so smooth, defending that way. So I think scouting that Stargate to check the follow-up is going to be massive. And that's going to make your game so much smoother. The crazy thing is, you're still winning this game. Right?
Yeah, the Phoenix just snowball in this game, so that's a little bit a one-off thing that would happen, I guess.
I mean, your mechanics are pretty clean, though, and stuff. Your APM is way higher than your opponents here. What I'm seeing here is, if we can get that understanding down, be a bit more analytical in your game. Sorry, I keep turning away from my mic. If you can be a bit more analytical in your game in terms of identifying that scouting, and now that we've got these very smooth tells, that's going to be huge. So let's hop out of this game. We are out of time, but this has been awesome because this really has just made so clear two things in your play. One is check for what is a safe lead. Think about that every game in all your matchups. That's something which I'm sure carries over to PvT and PvZ at least a little bit, where there's games where you see no third CC and 5 barracks and you're like, yeah, I better take gases on my third and add my second forge and my second robo, you know? And it's like, no, just make another 4 gateways and non-stop warp in and make sure you don't get supply blocked and add more batteries and try to keep track of his army, because if you just survive this one attack, you win the game. You know, like, it's this thing. And what's the other part? We just talked about it there. It's PvP scout for which branch we're going. And I really want you to conceptualize it that way. Which branch are we going? And how can we do that? Any game for the next few days, it's like, wait, I lost this game. Oh, was I building ground units and Stargate? Like was I confused? So make sure you're going back, especially your next few games, and you should get this down very quickly. I'm sure you will, because you're clearly a competent player in many regards. You just haven't been focusing on this one aspect. Scout for that. See if you can decisively go down that one branch. Everything's going to happen so much smoother.
All right. Okay, things actually make a lot more sense now.
Awesome, man. All right. So those 2 homework points, focus on those. What I'd love you to do is tomorrow, when your brain's fresh, watch the replays again. But most importantly, read through the notes here. Just again, when your brain is fresh, once you've slept on it. Most of it's probably already going to be in there. Just review it again tomorrow before you hop on ladder. If you can play some PvP custom games versus a friend or a practice partner, that's going to be awesome as well, just to help you get down some of that kind of focused practice, and it should work out really nicely.
All right.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, let me know how it goes. If you ever want to set up another session, hit me up. Otherwise, let me know how it goes in Twitch chat one day, and I look forward to hearing about the 6th. Again. Sorry. I was just saying, basically, let me know in Twitch chat how it's going one day. I hope we see a 60-70% win rate in Protoss vs. Protoss in the next few weeks.
All right. I'll let you know. Thank you very much.
Good night, brother.
See ya.
All right.